Welcome to the Sugar Coated Dreams podcast. Do you ever catch yourself daydreaming about running your own baking business? Brace yourself for a fun ride as I share inspiring stories of dreamers just like you turned doers. The podcast that takes you on a mouth-watering journey into the world of baking and entrepreneurship. Everybody, thank you so much for listening today. We have an incredible guest. So, Fred, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, Lauren. Hi, everyone. I am Fred Csibi-Levin, also known as Doc Macaron on social media.
You know, Fred and I met on the Christmas Cookie Challenge. And the thing that I loved the most about Fred is when we arrived, he sent me a message. He didn't even know me. You sent me a message, Fred, and said, "Do you want to go out to dinner?" And I couldn't because I already had plans, but I thought, this is a nice guy. I can't wait to get to know him more. You're a very friendly, creative, talented pastry chef. So I really found your journey into becoming what you are today, an incredibly renowned pastry chef and a huge following on Instagram. I think your story is amazing because you did not start out in culinary arts, right?
Not at all.
So can you tell people a little bit about what inspired your transition from a scientist to a pastry chef?
Yeah, of course. So definitely my, let's say, culinary pastry career is not your common. I do have a Ph.D. in cell biology, so I do consider myself a scientist at my core. It's like what's inside of me, what drives a lot of what I do, even right now as a pastry person. I actually worked in the pharmaceutical industry doing drug development for a long time, in different companies, large, small, learn a lot, have managed teams of small size up to 10 people or so. But I do find a lot of commonalities between running a lab and running a kitchen. Both require a lot of processes in place, of logistics, of, handling reagents or ingredients, depending on which one, in certain ways to make something that's either going to show you, do we have a new potential path for a medication, or do we have a new delicious and beautiful dessert? So in many ways, they do share a lot of things. I do believe that both are like laboratories that do, different things, but are managed similarly. In the course of my discovering of how baking is my passion, I, spend a lot of time trying to understand things regarding ingredients, how to change them, manipulate them, what parameters in them makes them do certain things. Because if you pay attention to recipes, at least within the French pastries, which is what I focus myself on, they do share the same things or many of the same basic ingredients, flour, some type of fat like butter, oil, sugar, and a liquid. But it's really how you manipulate them, what you do to them, if you're going to use them in certain ways that will lead to all different sort of things. And that really caught my attention as I was, spending more of my time in my own kitchen at home, like playing with recipes. That I found, very, very fascinating.
Fred, I completely agree with you. I love science. And one thing that was so fascinating is when I was preparing for the Christmas Cookie Challenge, I had to take my own recipes. And that's something that I had never done. I was not a recipe developer. I was a one-shot wonder. I had one good recipe and that's all I made. And although I grew up cooking, I could not have told you specifically what each ingredient did. Well, you need to know that when you are developing recipes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I bought a book on the science of baking, and I absolutely loved it. That was my favorite thing about being on the Food Network, was gaining that knowledge from that book, because once you know that, you can make anything.
Absolutely. So it is really understanding what their core function is with a specific pastry or baked good, that would let you then also like even troubleshoot. The thing, a lot of challenges that there are that I know people get perhaps frustrated with baking is that they try to follow a recipe to the T, but then it doesn't work. It may not work because what someone does in their kitchen may not be the same. The quality of ingredients are not the same. The oven or the equipment, the way that your stand mixer mixes things, like the speed is probably not the same as mine. So you have to understand what you're looking for. And for that, you need to understand first the role of whatever ingredients you're using. So,
That's
you know,
right.
as part of my learning by myself initially, I loved baking like little cakes, cupcakes, etc. But what really caught my attention was French macaron. Those delicious cookies that people like and becoming more and more mainstream and trendy in the United States. But they are known for being particularly finicky. They sometimes may bake okay, other times not so much. And there are many things that really influence on how that happens. So back then, we're talking a few years now, I spent a lot of time trying to understand how to get a successful macaron because my batches were not working every time. And as a scientist, I'm like, this is crazy. What is going on? It
Right.
was really frustrating. So I wrote, I took a notebook and I started to writing down everything. And then I was, looking at the time, how long I was mixing up the meringue, and then realized the next time that I did the same, it wouldn't work. So even though I'm a scientist and we do need, when you're doing a work in a lab, you do need to be consistent with those things. In the kitchen may not be entirely applied. It is more to when to stop, particularly for French macaroni, on the technique itself. And how old the eggs are can influence, how humid it is may influence, etc. So I really started to break down every step of the process into understanding what was contributing to making something good or not.
So you use the scientific method, right? All those kids
Absolutely.
in school, if you're listening and you're in science class and you're learning about the scientific method, pay attention.
Yeah. So every single thing, and then I will compare. If we can talk about the macaron process, but there's this step called macaronage. You're folding the batter, to get a specific consistency. So I was folding it into different consistencies and putting them in the same tray in the oven at the same time to compare, like if you go a little longer, if you don't, or see what the outcome will be. And that's really what caught my eye. I'm like, okay, baking is definitely a science. This is not real news to me. I've heard this concept before, but never really worked on that or done it myself. So I got really curious. I got hooked. I started exploring more things. I opened my Instagram account, and that basically skyrocketed. Not only I was exploring more on that baking science, but also on how baking, what you do with it at the end, can also be an art. So it kind of
Yes.
merge art science with being able to troubleshoot things. So something I love doing in the pharmaceutical industry, you have to always be troubleshooting, changing gears, like adapting. So that applied here was really cool.
So Fred, let me ask you a question. Just going back a little bit, were you working as a scientist when you first started to learn to bake macarons?
Yeah, well,
You were
as I
doing
said,
it at the same time for a little bit.
So as I said, I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for quite some time, right? So I did start as anyone with a PhD, or with even people without PhDs but are related to the actual science itself. I did start working in a lab. You go through a fairly long period of training, PhD, postdoc, and then join pharmaceutical industry, and you're still kind of in that area for some time, like learning how to do things the way they do it in the specific companies, learning how drug development works, which is what I used to do. So I did spend a few years in the bench, so doing, using a pipette and mixing things. But then as I progressed within the industry, I got more and more disconnected from that. I was doing more management, leading projects, spending all day in meeting rooms, which it was good. I learned so much in many different areas, but I did miss some of that technical hand component, which was getting kind of like that gap was being brought back by doing
Right.
it in the kitchen. Like, okay, I'm back in my own kitchen lab.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think it was really that understanding of ingredients, etc., that really caught my eye and pushed me eventually after a long time, and of course a lot of thinking how I'm gonna put this into my busy schedule, etc., to decide to enroll into pastry school because I really wanted to learn more. And I know there's a lot of self-taught people, which is amazing. I'm sure I could have just continued teaching myself, but I wanted, to get the basis from people that have been doing this for a while.
Right.
I think sometimes it's harder for you to gather all the basic knowledge from different sources. So I just
Yes,
wanted to.
especially for what you do, because you're not just making macarons, you're making all those other amazing desserts. And I think it would be more difficult to be self-taught to do all of the things that you've learned how to do in pastry school.
Yeah, I mean, it did give me a great, knowledge, not also knowledge, also a good community. The instructors at school here, I went to Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in the Boston area where I live. They've been very supportive. It was also nice to see that there were other people, not in my exact path, science with, a career that is learning, going back to school in a way, but other people from other career backgrounds, even finance, people that have been in their jobs for decades to be in these
Right.
programs. It was nice to see that there's there's many of us that do love this culinary world that just want to learn more, to increase our skill sets, or improve certain areas. Depending, obviously, someone may have a different goal than mine. But eventually, it was a really good decision I took because it really helped me take things to a much advanced step to the next step.
Isn't it interesting, Fred, how we have a dream inside of us that we don't even know is there until we take
Yeah.
that step and try and learn a new skill until something sparks our interest. And the more you get into it, that dream starts to become a reality. And this podcast is about dreamers turn doers. And you are definitely that person, because you didn't necessarily have that dream of being, Doc Macaron, but you took one step to go to pastry school because you wanted to learn more about something that you were interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ended up retiring from being a scientist and moved full-fledged into Doc Macaron. So that is a great segue for me to ask you, what types of things are in the works for Doc Macaron? Because you are doing a lot of amazing things for the baking community.
Thank you. It's still a brand in development, but I do have a lot of different things going on. My brand generally, it focuses on helping others learn how to bake, anything from something that can be simple to a much more advanced. And I do it so by bridging science and baking, and with adding what I call a sprinkle of art to it. So in that sense, given the main purpose of my brand being on education and training, I do provide a wide variety of classes, whether them to be online in group classes via Zoom. They actually work very well. I have already predetermined classes that I have, been developing and teaching already that cover many things around the pastry world. Obviously, macaron. I have different type of macaron classes, but also things like chew puff, tarts, chocolate, etc. I do have individual classes with either online or in person as well. And something I've been working on that I love doing is consulting with, again, either individuals, bakeries, or larger groups. I've been getting more traction in that recently, getting reached out by, local companies that have restaurants or like restaurants themselves that want to learn how to do specific things or want to change their menu items. Something that's happening right now in the restaurant world, and there are actually articles out there that you can find, is that many restaurants are not hiring pastry chefs because of payroll, and because many times, once you have a big meal, some people are like, I'm going to skip dessert. So it becomes very expensive to have a pastry chef, like resident pastry chef in-house. So what they're doing, they either hire someone to do consulting job with them, which is what I do, helping them visualize something related to what their obviously restaurant is about, what their food is, etc. And then train people to do so, provide the recipes, develop them, etc. So that's an area I've been exploring more, and actually I think there's a lot of potential. And it's part within that umbrella of education training, which is what I do. And there's this other side on content creation. I do a lot of work for obviously Instagram purposes, but also engaging with companies. I've worked already with a few large companies in the industry world to promote their products. And it's actually cool when you reach out and when you get reached out and they ask you like, oh, would you work on this campaign for me? I'm like, oh my God, I've been using these products for so long. It's amazing that you're reaching out to me.
Did you ever think, Fred, the first day that you walked into that pastry school, that this is what your life would be like now? Isn't it amazing that you're able to make a living with something that is so wonderful and so much fun?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, what's not to like? It makes something that makes people happy and that tastes great most times.
Yes. Another thing I really, really appreciate about you, Fred, you can go on your Instagram and you can find so many recipes, and I become inspired. I just looked at a recipe that you had out there today, and it was for a filled, I don't know what it's called, but a eclair maybe. And it was a 1-minute video. And I thought I could do that. I could totally do that. Well, I probably can't, but it made me want to try.
Go for it. So that's the thing. There's no intellectual property into recipes. It's very hard to get anything into that. So people are holding to them. I get their point. They may have worked on something that they're trying to monetize. Totally get it. At the same time, it's a very stiff competition out there for someone to sell recipes compared to what a whole world of blogging and free recipes are.
Right.
As I mentioned before, you can follow a recipe to the T. It may not work because it goes beyond that. So in my videos, they're short videos. It's Instagram, right? You cannot add for something very long. Some people have asked me if I wanted to if I have a YouTube channel, and perhaps I should. It's just there's so much time I have currently for that. But it's not only the grams or whatever you're doing, it's how you use those grams. And even though I do try to show that on my Instagram as much as possible, sometimes it may be difficult. So that's when it comes, people get, as you said, oh, maybe I'll try this. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, but they really thought it was a fun process, then they reach out to me and they said, hey, can you help me troubleshoot? And it may not be that I'm
Right.
getting money out of that, but I'm getting more and more interactions, and people talk about me and how I help them, and that progressively continues, and my name gets out there. I've had people
Yes.
commenting on my post saying, I cannot afford going to, pastry school or pay for recipes. And I get it. They said, I'm so grateful that you share these things because they help me learning. And my dream is to open a bakery. So, as I consider myself a pastry educator now. That's
Right.
what it's all about, right?
Yes. It gives you a great feeling to know that you're helping someone else, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, that's at the end of the day, that's what I like the most. I like sharing my knowledge and
Right.
hopefully helping. Um,
Something else that I think is so neat, Fred, is how you grew up. So you were born in Venezuela and then you moved to France. And
yeah.
so that's why you have that amazing accent. And and I know you do the French method of macarons.
I
Is
do.
is that what prompted you to do that because of the way that you grew up growing up in France? Did you have like macarons for breakfast and macarons for snacks?
Well, macarons are also they're also expensive in France, right? And I grew up in
Mhm.
a modest household, so I didn't always have them. It's more of a celebration thing, so always love them. But talking about macarons themselves, you mentioned French macaron. All there's people call them out there, and you will hear French, Italian, Swiss macaron. They're all the same. They're just macaron, and this is something I've been talking about. Is the difference is only the meringue that you use for them, right? So I use French meringue. Someone that calls an Italian macaron uses Italian meringue, but at the end of the day, it's a macaron, which is French. Sorry, it's my French side showing up. Actually, Italian, what I call Italian meringue macarons were pioneered by a French person, not Italian person, called Pierre
Is that
Hermé,
right?
which I have his amazing book, from which he has multiple. I have another one too, or maybe two.
Mhm.
Um, he actually pioneered the Italian meringue macaron, which is what I started with my macaron journey. Um, I did Italian meringue macarons for a very long time. I still do every now and then. I love them. They have
Mhm.
differences in terms of sometimes in terms of the texture, but they are very, very similar. Um, the reason I have switched more recently to French, it's just I'm doing it at home in a small scale. Italian meringue macarons require a little bit more bowls to use and things like that. So I just to make
Mhm.
the process a little bit faster, and because also I wanted to teach the Italian method ones use cooked sugar to a certain temperature, and you have to kind of time it, etc. When you add it to egg whites, and the more I understood from people, they wanted to learn more French. I did a lot of polls in my Instagram back then, like
Mhm.
which of the methods for making macarons will you make, and French came number one because it's a simplest in paper. Technically, it's challenging, but it's just adding sugar to egg whites that are whipping to make a meringue. That's a French meringue. So in theory, it was easy. So for me, as I thought, if I'm going to start teaching this, I should teach it with the process to which people are going to feel less intimidated with in the
Well, you're
French.
an excellent instructor because I can say that firsthand because I've taken one of your classes and I I'm one of those cookie makers that thought, "Oh, I'm good. I've made lots of things. I've made cakes, cookies, lollipop. I mean lots of different, culinary things. I can make macarons." And oh no, no, that wasn't the case at all. But I was successful after taking your class. I mean,
They
I
were
made
pretty. I
beautiful
remember.
macarons. They were, and you're very patient and you're very, it's kind of a chill environment when you take a class from you. And I loved it. It was fun.
I'm so
So I
glad.
know you teach online classes. You also are involved in the Bake Fest. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Bake Fest is a virtual, so online, uh, baking wide event that covers many things. It's, I think, twice a year now, maybe three times. But it's trying to build community by bringing people to the same event. I think it started during the pandemic, which, it was a huge thing as people were doing more and more baking at home. Um, so it has either a hands-on demos, but also virtual like talks and how do you call that, brainstorming sessions or sessions where you get to go and meet someone, like that kind of discussion, which is great. In terms of the hands-on, covers on many different things. Last year I did one on macaron, which was called Advanced Methods for Macaron,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get to that in a minute. And this year I did chew pastry. Um, for the, I guess it will be now the spring one, and it's going to be a fall one where I'm going to be doing something else. So I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
change them a little bit to keep people engaged, to see new things, teach them different areas. For the macaron one was actually pretty cool because I took, the traditional macaron making method, but making things a little bit more different. I made shapes. I made actual like standing 3D house macaron. I made different colors. So teaching people how to do that, which itself is an added complexity into the macaron.
Fred, when we met on the Christmas cookie challenge, I had never seen anyone make a macaron into what you were able to make a macaron into. And it was so interesting because I was thinking in my head, what's he going to do? What can you do with the macaron? Because I only had seen it as a sandwich cookie. And what you were able to create, it was amazing. I mean, dinosaurs out of macarons was amazing. And then the things that that you've done the Ferris wheel out of a
Yeah, that
macaron.
moves.
Incredible. I know you've made a greenhouse out of a macaron. I mean, it's amazing what you can make with out of a macaron.
Yeah, it's part of that like creativity that always keeps me, engaged. I love creativity, like thinking of new things. What can I
Right.
make now? I've done that a lot with macaron. Now I'm expanding to many other things. So it's always like, what is new? If you go to my
Yes.
Instagram, I mean, I sometimes repost the same thing because I like it too much. I'm like, I want to show it again. But most
Right.
times I do something completely new or different. I try to stay or teach something new, or like a new decoration or a new way to do this, or which is it's fun.
Your Instagram is so visually appealing. I mean, it's so beautiful. The colors and the way you use edible gold, and it really is a feast for the eyes. I only wish we lived closer because I know that you must get really tired of eating all those desserts by yourself or giving them to your husband. Lauren needs a few.
You need some. I mean, my neighbors have a good rotation of them, but you should be one of them.
So, talking about the Christmas cookie challenge, do you have any memorable moments from that? And then how do you think that has impacted your career?
Yeah, memorable moments. Of course, talking to you literally was one of the highlights. I
Oh,
don't know which one was. Maybe the day of the competition, we were having breakfast, or the day after. I don't remember. But just having that talk with you, just there, like you're so calming. I was so stressed or something, and like you just exude that calm that I
thank
needed,
you.
and just getting to know you, it was really fantastic. So I think that's one of the highlights, as well as meeting the other competitors from our episode. Fantastic. That was my favorite part of the entire thing. The competition itself is kind of a blur in my head right now. I don't know if
Right.
it's the same with you. Um, I'm happy with what I did. Um, Obviously didn't win, but that's fine. But I think itself, the challenge wasn't, as you know, against you. Maybe it was more about challenging me to complete what I needed to do within the time frame.
Right.
So coming there, I don't think, I've seen a lot of Food Network TV shows, baking shows. I don't think I had seen anyone making macaron in shapes like that before. So for me,
Right.
that was my own challenge, was I need to go here and do my specialty in a way that maybe hadn't been seen before. And I may be wrong, maybe someone did, but not that I can recall.
Right.
Making those dinosaurs that you said was itself a challenge, given, as we just talked about, macarons being so finicky, particularly in a kitchen environment that we are not familiar with. I was
Right.
really nervous about that. So having completed the challenge with my dinosaur-shaped macaron was itself a success for me.
Yes.
But it was so crazy.
I've never been so tired in all my life. In fact, I don't know if I told you this, but I cried, not because I didn't win. I cried the entire way home in the car. And I think, and it's just the release of emotion, because it's a high pressure, high stress, lots of fun, super fast paced. I was hurt, I fell and cracked my kneecap. And I think just when I finally was able to just calm down, because I drove there, I cried almost the entire way home, just releasing the emotion.
Yeah, it was definitely an adrenaline, rush out there.
It was.
It was a good experience, to learn that, to be there, to see this kitchen, obviously, doing the challenge itself and getting to know you and the other competitors. Overall, it was great. Back then when they reached out, I wasn't expecting it at all. I'm like, I'm not a cookie artist, And they said, well, your craft is sort of a bit different. It's within the cookie world. We want to show that. So I'm glad in that sense I was asked so I could show it.
Right. Right. So as a macaron artist, the most difficult thing, I think, is creating perfect shells and having those perfect little feet on the bottom. And you were able to achieve that on the Food Network, which was, I was amazed by that, because you don't have much time. And I know that is a difficult thing to do because of the differences in the humidity and the oven temperatures, but you did it. So what's your best tip to achieving those perfect shells that everybody tries to achieve?
Practice. I have a few, actually. May I? Accuracy. Be accurate. Weigh your ingredients. Really make sure that you're doing things in a proper way. So, yeah, practice and patience. All about patience with macaron. So that's the thing. I think a lot of people that may start their macaron journey, it may not go as they expected and may not have the patience, and then they just get frustrated and just give up. I get it. I understand. I get it. But even if they fail, you could still eat them most times. I'm sure 99% of them they'll still taste great. Or you can repurpose them. There's a lot of things out there that people do to repurpose macaron, failed macaron. But if you really want to get into master them, just try to understand each step, as I did. Like check a lot of blogs, Instagram pages. That helped me out a lot in the beginning as well. Mm-hmm. Like look at the macaronage video or the meringue video, and then try to do that myself. I do it in the beginning. I'm like, okay, I'm at this stage. How will it look?
I did when I was learning how to make macarons, and I'm not an expert by any means, but I would have one good batch, and then one batch, and one good batch. And I thought maybe I should write down what I'm doing. And so I started to write down, and then I would refer when something went well. I thought, okay, maybe I need to do it again like that. And so, but I don't sell them. I was just making them for my friends and my kids mainly. My oldest son, he's 21. He loves a macaron. He thinks it's the greatest cookie ever. So as long as I could put something on a plate, he didn't care if it had feet or what it looked like or if the bottom was a little too burnt. He just thought it was delicious.
So that's the thing. I went to, since I've been baking macaron, and I go back to France to my parents, I stop by at bakeries and take a peek, like, how do they look? Many times they don't look as pretty as people have set as standards for a perfect macaron. I mean,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. A lot of people are gonna eat them and like them because
Right.
nice. If they have the important parameters, which is crunchy shell, a little chew in the inside with nice flavor, then you're fine.
What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite filling?
I do love salted caramel. I will say that's my favorite. I love everything salted caramel. I just like when sweets have a savory like side to them as well. And obviously salted caramel is quite obvious, but macarons themselves as cookies are pure sugar, literally. So they're sweet, and adding a filling that has a balance of, savory, like the salt can kind of remove some of that sweetness. If not something like citrusy, I love everything citrus, like a lemon cremeux or something like that. Or add like a lemon curd, again, to kind of balance the sweetness with acidity. Always try to bring that somewhere.
So do you have any tips or advice that you would give to someone who is maybe thinking, I would like to learn more about pastry and maybe even, retire from my career and try to do something that I'm passionate about?
Yeah. I think that first, I think some of the ones that just applied will be here as well, particularly patience. Number one thing, because as you're learning, things will fail. So be patient with that. Be gentle with yourself. Don't be afraid of failure in the beginning, or that things won't be as fast as you may expect them to be. Just try to build a community of people that may be in the same situation. That's why I think pastry school was besides learning, was a good place for me. And also try to reach out outside of that to people that may be experts in something. You'll see how many of them, particularly in the social media world, are very open at helping in ways. Many macaron makers, back in when I started, were pillars for me in a way that they helped me in many, with not only their videos, but also when I reached out, I'm like, huge fan of your work. I've been having these issues. Will you have any idea? And, many times I will get some useful information.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the things that you said is so important is get a community around you, because that makes such a difference to be able to bounce ideas off each other, encourage each other. I think it's key.
Absolutely. Yes.
So Fred, tell us where we can find you, all the different places. You're on Instagram is Doc Macaron. Are you delving into the TikTok world, Fred?
I do have a TikTok account. I'm not as active as on Instagram, but both are the same handle, Doc_Macaron. I also have a website where I also post recipes. I have listed all my services. You can reach out. It's docmacaron.com. Those are my primary, areas you can reach out, or my email, fred@docmacaron.com. Yeah.
And we'll post those all in the show notes. And then last but not least, are you ready for our speed round?
Oh my God. Maybe.
Okay, the first one, and you already touched on this, but I'm going to ask again, is what is your favorite cookbook?
Yes, the Bible. Pierre Macaron. This one, I have
Okay.
another one that I could show. But I also have, of course, it's macaron. It has many flavors. It's great. It gives you a lot of ideas in how to combine flavor things. But a pastry little Bible. It's the French patisserie book from Ferrandi Paris, which is at school. Anyone that
Ooh.
wants to learn how to make pastries with classical French pastries, definitely recommend getting this one. I mean, look how thick it is.
I was going to say that
It's
is
like a
a big
workout,
book.
but it does cover absolutely everything that you see in pastry school, from
Oh,
laminated doughs, puff pastries, croissant, of course, breads, cakes, like anything. And it has the recipes as well to do. So this is a good resource.
okay. Now, do you have a favorite dessert?
Yes, macaron. I mean, I do like a lot of different things. It's hard for me to choose, even outside of macaron. I'm dessert inclusive.
Okay, I like that. I like that. What about if you could make macarons for anyone living or who has passed on, who would you make them for?
I will make for my grandmother. I think she would like them. She's no longer with us. She hasn't been with us for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
She passed when I was very young, but I have very fond memories with her. Actually, some
Mm-hmm.
of my early baking memories come from seeing her making things like breads. She used to do breads. It was very rustic, but you could tell the love she poured into making these things. So I would love to
Oh,
be making a macaron for her. I've been making things for my parents when I go there and see them. And my last time was it was, what was it? My aunt's birthday. So I made her cakes. I made tarts. I made a bunch of different things. I actually taught my dad how to make baguette. Yeah.
oh.
So that's cool. It's cool to do that.
You know, it's neat how being in the kitchen can really bring people together, isn't it?
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
Caleb, our oldest son, he's 21. He was so picky when he was young and he wouldn't eat anything. I mean, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches pretty much is what he lived on. Well, now he loves to cook, which is something that I never thought would happen. But we have more fun in the kitchen together. And then the same thing with my younger son. He loves to cook. He took cooking classes in school. And it is such a great bonding experience when we're all in the kitchen together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yep.
Last but not least, if you could go on vacation anywhere, where would you go tomorrow?
I will go somewhere in the Pacific. I haven't been out in that area of the world, or well, only Hawaii, but like the southern or Tahitian islands, like Tahiti, like Fiji, all of those.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call it? Like a full name, right? Where also
I
Hawaii.
can't tell you, Fred. Geography is not my thing.
I want to go to those. But I also would love, I know you only said one place, but it's hard to choose, Lauren.
It's okay. You can say more than one.
I would like to go to Japan, Thailand. I have never been to that area of the world. I'm really curious. I just want to be there and see the cultures and the foods. I want to
The
learn more about
food.
that kind of desserts. Like they do have a lot of produce that we may not have here, and want to taste them and see how to use them and learn from that, right?
Right.
I know sometimes like it's hard sometimes to separate that as being like part of work versus life things, but I think it's also life learning, right? I'm learning how
Right.
to eat something that maybe I've never had before. Like, how do you pair that with something?
Polynesian Islands. Yeah, I'm not very good. I mean, it's wonderful because I homeschooled my kids for a little bit and I did learn a little bit of geography when I was teaching them, but that was a long time ago because I didn't care when I was young. You know, all these things are going into your brain, and the things that you don't really care about go in one side and kind of go out the other. And for me, that was geography. So, but thank you for coming on today. I just think you're the nicest, most talented guy. And I felt the same way about the Christmas cookie challenge. Meeting you was an absolute highlight. And it's so funny how you can feel connected to somebody almost instantly. And I found that connection with you.
Thanks so much, Lauren, for having me, and hope to see you soon.
Bye.